Welcome to Here's to Your Health with Joshua Lane. Here's to Your Health discusses the current thinking in wellness, bringing you the most influential thinkers in beauty, fitness, and longevity. Your host, Joshua Lane, was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that helped bring wheatgrass sprouts and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health, Joshua Lane.
Hi, it's Josh Lane with Here's to Your Health. We have a special program today, memorial service for the life and times of Viktoras Kulvinskas, a very influential wellness teacher, mentor of mine, mentor to many people, and really someone who really was very giving and really helped a lot of people.
My name is Reverend Premajoti Devi, and this is the Integral Yoga Institute of New Jersey. We're in Lotus Hall, where we have all of our classes and special programs. And this is a very special event for all of us who have known and loved, and I'm going to get teary-eyed, known and loved Viktoras for so many years. But this is what we do here at Integral Yoga. We remember our loved ones and keep them in our hearts forever. We're here together to not only remember Viktoras and what he has done for us, but also to pray for his immortal soul. I do believe that since he passed consciously, that he is already in the hands of the divine, and this might be very much more so for us than for him. But we had a memorial service for Swami Satchidananda, our guru, so it was the same kind of thing and even more so. So I will begin with what we call an arati, which is a waving. It's an abbreviated version of Inter-Yoga Puja, which honors the divine and asks its presence here, and it honors it with recognizing that it is everywhere, and we represent that in the form of incense. We also honor the divine in the form of light, the light that is within us all, and also the light that can burn our impurities, the heat that can burn our impurities. And then we honor the divine in the form of camphor. For when that burns, there is no ash, there's nothing. It represents the immortality of our soul, but also, in a sense, the merging of our soul with the divine. Omkaram Vidyusam Yutam Nityam Yayanti Yogina Kalamadam Mokshadam Shaiva Omkaraya Namo Namaha. Om, united with the source on which the yogis ever dwell, grants desires and liberation. Salutations to the Omkaram. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Hari Sarvajoti Swarunyaya Namaha. Om Sarvajoti Swarunyaya Namaha. Om Sarvajoti Namaha. Bandhu will do the first reading.
You can shed tears because they are gone, or you can smile because they lived. You can close your eyes and pray that they will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that they have left for you. Your heart can be empty because you can't see them, or you can be full of the love that you shared with them. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember only that they are gone, or you can cherish their memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind and feel empty, or you can do what they want. Smile, open your heart, love, and go.
Thank you. Now we have a little tribute of Victoris saying a few words. This is from 2020 during the pandemic, and we asked Victoris to come on to talk about survival strategies regarding COVID. So this is a snippet of that.
We are challenged at this time by many great issues, among them information wars, especially currently now dealing with voting, but even more so with the coronavirus. Fear has been inculcated and indoctrinated through the mass media. People do not know the answers. That will be one major challenge. The other one is right on top of the list, the issue of dealing with your own personal mortality. How do you look at that? And then we're looking at environmental challenges, EMF smog, chemtrails, and lastly, we look at both acute and chronic diseases, as well as the influence played by the pharmaceutical and the medical allopathic establishment in terms of contributing to stress and death. And what you can do about it, it's very simple. Turn in within. Keep your alliance close to your affiliations like Integral Yoga Institute and other great spiritual teachers throughout the world. What can we do about the coronavirus? First of all, it's very simple. Even Oxford University, within the last 2 months on PBC News, released the fact that number one contributor increasing your level of risk by 100-fold is obesity. Who are the slimmest people on planet Earth? Plant-based nutritionists who are consuming whole foods. You can reduce also the risk, no matter what kind of dietary approach, by consuming vitamin D3, zinc, and other minerals, especially magnesium, vitamin C. Modify your attitude. Your attitude is what is one of the key factors that can drive you into conditions of disease, sickness, and death. In 1966, when President Johnson spoke on the health of the nation, he brought out that over 65% of Americans were sick with chronic illnesses, right? And over 25% of our children. Currently, over 52% of our children are sick with old age diseases, and over 80% of our USA community is sick with incurable diseases, according to the medical community. Johnson got the Surgeon General K-O-O-P, doctor, with unlimited budget to find out what's going on and why. The conclusions practically a decade later, came out as the Surgeon General report. And in the introduction, so that you don't miss out what the answer is, they said, as far as wellness and health is concerned, do not expect any help from your allopathic doctors or hospitals or any scientific breakthrough. The whole issue resides on, something as simple as that. Personal involvement and intervention as far as diet, exercise, attitude, your environment, and the amount of rest you do give yourself. Sad to say, they never came to optimal diet or any of the other ways to improve yourself outside of coming to these conclusions. Even though the report came out in the 70s, we continue to degenerate and continue to follow to the point where Consumer Report brought out, we spend yearly at this time over $200 billion in drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. At the same time, according to Harvard Public Health Department, over approximately 100, between 85 and 130,000 people die from correct application and usage of these drugs that we are brought out to believe and consume. So primarily, it comes down to personal responsibility. And I came up with something called Love Meds, an acronym standing for Loving Longevity, Orgasmic Organics, Vital Veganism, and Enzymatic Ecology. And the MEDS stands for meditation instead of medication. The E stands for extreme exercise. That means on a daily basis. D stands for taking the DIE out of diet. And in the word death, the word EAT is there, strong indicator that our eating patterns are bringing about the death. And lastly, supplements, sleep, sensuality, sacred sensuality, and stress suppression by bringing the negative emotions out of your life through motion, such as yoga, breath, laughter, dance, hiking, conscious walking, meditation. There's no end. Being in nature, even the United Nations suggested within the last 2 weeks on their report that there is no future unless we get involved with nature. Nature is your mother, your healer, your source of nutrition, your source of wealth and abundance.
Our second reading from the Bhagavad Gita. Neither I, nor you, nor anyone was ever non-existent before, nor shall we cease to be in the future. Just as the indweller in the body experiences childhood, youth, and old age, so does he pass on to another body. The serene one is not affected thereby. The unreal has no existence. The real never ceases to be. The truth about both has been realized by the seers. Although bodies are said to have an end, the indweller of the body, the Atman, is eternal. It cannot be limited or destroyed. This Atman is neither born nor dies. Coming into being and ceasing to be do not take place in it. Unborn, eternal, constant, and ancient. It does not cease to exist when the body does. Just as a man casting off worn-out garments puts on new ones, so the embodied, casting off worn-out bodies, enters into ones which are new. not dried and not wetted, not burned, not wounded. The Atman, our innermost self, is everywhere, always. Beings of beings, changeless, eternal and everlasting. He who dwells within all living bodies remains forever indestructible. Therefore, knowing it as such, you should grieve not. Our next offerings will be people who would like to share testimony about Victoris. I already have a list of people who definitely wanted to, but I also see David Christopher on screen. Hello there.
Motion.
David's father befriended Victoris. That's Victoris and Dr. John Christopher, who we appreciate more than we can imagine. All the herbs and herbal formulas that we use. So thank you so much, David, for taking the time to come out. Would you like to share a few words?
I'd love to. Thank you. When I started helping my father with his School of Natural Healing and traveling with him, apprenticing, if you would, I was so excited the first time I went to a National Health Federation convention, and I found that other people in the world drink carrot juice. I mean, we were so isolated in Utah as far as anyone else having the same ideas that it was just amazing to find other people. And then when I came in contact with Victoris and his teachings, it was like, yes, I've been taught these things my whole life, and I thought nobody else thought it, and then Victoris came along and even expanded upon what Dr. Christopher was talking about. I was just so thrilled and so energized by his messages. It was amazing. And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Victoris, and just admired his pushing forward and presenting his wonderful messages, and letting us all follow his ways.
Thank you so much. So is Rick Victoris's caregiver here? Rick, would you like to share a few words?
Which Rick are you talking about?
The Rick that was the caregiver. But if you're not the caregiver and you'd like to say a few words about Victoris, you're welcome to.
Perfect. Yeah, Victor, I've known Victor, we've been friends for over 40 years. And I first met him through the Blue-Green Algae Network. And I live in Florida, so I've spent quite a bit of time with him over the last 10 years. Every time he came and spent time at Hippocrates, which was usually about twice and before 4 times a year. About Victor, very special soul, very dear friend. What I really loved about him was his ability to stay positive and always putting out positive energy and coming from a place of balance and peace and love. And that to me was one of his greatest gifts. And back in the day when he was lecturing a lot, he was definitely he was the most inspirational lecturer that I ever attended, were the talks that he gave at health shows, at Celtech and Hippocrates. And I just feel really blessed that I was able to share part of my journey with him and vice versa. So that's basically the story. But he just had such a beautiful heart and just emitted so much love and was always there for people. He would really give his shirt off his back, and he probably did on many occasions to help somebody else. So that's the story.
Thank you so much. I see E3 Live on screen. Is there someone who's representing E3 Live who would like to share?
Sure. This is Tamara Campbell. And Victorious for me, I looked at him as a pillar of wisdom. He was a dear friend and truly a visionary light in my life. We co-authored a book called Our Elders Speak. And in working with him over that couple of years, I really experienced firsthand his profound devotion to life and to healing. And he really taught us over the years that our bodies and our spirits have truly an incredible capacity to renew. And that's a lesson that I carry with me more than ever today. When I think of Victoris, I really saw in him that he lived his truth and he was dynamic in every way, from living through his early childhood trauma all the way to the healing and putting things in perspective. He just never ceased to amaze me at the depth of character and love that I saw in that man. As we celebrate his transition, by nourishing his memory with the gratitude he so freely gave, I really believe his voice will continue to speak through the wisdom that he's left for all of us. I'm very grateful for the time that I had with him and the conversations that we had throughout the years.
Thank you so much, Deb. Matthew, would you like to share?
My
Yes.
association with Victorious was mostly epistolary and literary. I was a contributor to this volume of his, which he compiled. This was 1981. In 1981, I also wrote a book called Radical Vegetarianism, and he wrote the foreword. I don't know if you can see his name there. Okay. The book also was republished in 2010. I continued his saga with sprouts called Sprout Garden. This was sort of a sequel to his book Sprout for the Love of Everybody. Joshua Lane actually has a photograph in that book. And in 2013, I published Microgreen Garden, and I want to read you, I have on the acknowledgement page, I acknowledge to two people. There's sunflower greens on the bottom photo there. And I made acknowledgments to two people, one of which was Victorious, and I'll read you the passage. The very idea of growing and eating sunflower greens began with one person, Victorious Kulvinskas, co-founder of the Hippocrates Health Institute and the author of many books on raw foods, sprouting, and natural living. One scant generation after Victorious harvested his first crop, most North Americans have heard about sunflower greens, many have eaten them, and some have even grown them. On behalf of sprout growers and microgreen gardeners worldwide, and on my own behalf, as one of Victor's inspired readers and honored friends, I bestow upon him my heartfelt thanks. Thank you, Victor. And that's my dedication.
Christopher, would you like to share something?
Appreciate the offer of my acquaintance with Victor. Was through Hippocrates Health Institute in Back Bay, Boston. A period 73 through 76. I worked, I started as a student there and became aware of Victor through he wasn't staying there. I think he was staying out of the farm at that time, but he would come in for the community meal, the free meal that we offered on Sundays, and would give lectures, and I'd be working in the kitchen, and you could just hear his voice echoing through up and down the stairs in the hallway. And it was always fascinating, even if the topic that wasn't particularly interesting to me, I mean, as written out, once he started and just brought in ideas from different perspectives, I was amazed to see his ability to just draw upon so many sources. And then there was the making of sauerkraut. And we would gather a group of willing participants with baseball bats and stainless steel buckets, and we would pound first we would shred, and then we would pound the cabbage relentlessly. And then I worked with him to develop. He was trying to develop a faster method, when you couldn't gather all the people in the baseball bats, using an old Norwalk triturator, I think Walker called it. And so he would grind it up and just not pound it or anything and put it in jars, and it worked, but it wasn't quite as good. It's sort of like a loaf of bread that's kneaded by hand versus by a machine. Somehow it just always tastes different, more flavorful. The other thing I remember about Victor was that he drove up from Florida one time in his van, and it was filled to the brim with oranges, of very, grapefruit, Tangelos, Valencia, that he had gotten from Ira Ebersol, who was basically the guy who provided organic citrus across country at that time. And so we unloaded, and the stuff was going bad, so we were forced to drink vast quantities of organic citrus juice. And I just remember him coming in once in a while to check up on things. And so that's my memory of Victor. Is it really more interpersonal, just someone just was wonderful to talk with and very supportive and always willing to lend a hand and with great, wonderful ideas. If I could say one more thing, and that is
Yes.
that Joshua and I worked together numerous times. He would call me when there was no one to run the kitchen. I'd be home, and he'd say, "I need somebody to come up here," and I would jump in my car and go up and do it. And that was that whole environment there that Victor and Ann Wigmore created at Hippocrates, which went beyond being communal. So anyway, I wanted to mention that.
So before I bring on Josh, is there anyone else on screen that feels called to say something? Going, gone. Josh, you're up. Thank you.
Hi. In 1972, I read Victor's book, Love Your Body, and I just, so enjoyed the book. I've been busy reading Herbert Shelton and Norman Walker and Arnold Ehret and Johnny Love Wisdom and Morris Kroc and all the people we were all reading and enjoying them. But when I read Love Your Body, I just thought, I just really like this. So I went up and was a student with Ann and Victor at Hippocrates in Boston for a week, had a great time, loved the food, loved the people, loved all the ideas I learned. It's one thing to read a book and, experiment with yourself, but when you have this community of people, the way Ann and Victor did at Hippocrates, it was really very powerful. So in 73, I asked Ann if I could work for her and Victor, and she said yes, and I worked there from 73 through 75, and it was really an amazing experience because we have to understand that in those days, there were very few centers of wellness in the United States. On the West Coast, there was Esalen, and they did mostly spiritual work and psychology, and they were world famous. But on the East Coast, I really believe that it was Ann Wigmore and Viktoras Kulvinskas who had the premier center of healing in the United States. There was the Shangri-La in Bonita Springs, Florida. That was a natural hygiene resort, and they did good work. But really, I think it was Kulvinskas and Dr. Ann at Hippocrates that really were at the forefront of thinking about wellness in all its aspects. And they were just remarkable. Victor was a remarkable teacher, healer, and gave wonderful lectures on all sorts of topics. And he was just quite remarkable, frankly. And when Survival into the 21st Century came out in 1975, that was a book that he published privately. And really, over the years, that book sold 500,000 copies. And in the publishing world, if you sell 5,000 copies of a book, that's a hit book. And to publish a book that is self-published and have that kind of reach just goes to show you how much interest there was and is in this subject. So it was a great thrill to know Victor. He was a marvelous teacher, and I was happy to say that I was able to travel with him and work with him, and he really provided for people, and he was just a remarkable man. When I was so young, I didn't realize that he and Ann, Dr. Ann Wigmore, were mentors to me. I didn't really understand the concept then, but now I do. And Ann Wigmore and Viktoras Kulvinskas did wonderful work, and I am very happy that Magabandhu and Integral Yoga set up this memorial service for Viktor Kulvinskas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Armando?
This is a rough one. I first met Victor when I was at Hippocrates. And at that time, he wasn't as well as he was when he left his body. He used to have to change his shirt 2 or 3 times a day, because of the fact that all this blisters throughout his body. And he had a concave chest. In a year's time, he turned that all around. That's why I was so impressed with him. Just what he did for himself, And we became very close because I kept on bugging him every day about things and about my own health. And we did retreats together. And the thing I remember most about him is his reflexology treatments. If you ever got a reflexology treatment from him, his hands were like beryllium steel. And when you get a treatment from him, it used to be so intense that my hair used to get oily. That's how strong he was, And I just spoke with him just a couple hours before he left, And I'll always remember him as a loving, serviceful man, And I'll miss him because anytime I had a question, I would call him up and ask him, and he'd have the answer like in 2 seconds, And he did so much for us here at the Institute. We did so many retreats together. Anytime I asked him to do something, he was always there for us. So, and at that time, David and Christopher, I was at the Hippocrates at the same time. So I remember Josh really well. So I want to thank everybody for just showing up today in his memory. And I love him very deeply, and I'll always remember him. And I'll always appreciate his gift that he gave to me as far as healing was concerned. So I want to now. I got in touch with his sisters. He has 2 sisters, Kay and Dijana, and I spoke to them over the phone. They don't have access to Zoom, so they combined. They wrote a letter and they sent it to me. They wanted me to read it to them. Okay. This was January 14th. To all of you here to remember our brother Viktoras, thank you. So with the prayer we may say, Viktoras, be with God, where joy flies from eternity to earth. May all of you be blessed in knowing Viktoras. I know we are. He was a brother, a teacher, a humanitarian, a healer, a friend, and a bishop. In closing, we want to share our brother's phone greeting. You are divine, beautiful, and holy. So go in love, life, and people. Kate Hornberger and Dijana Kaplich and family. Those are Victor's sisters. I also had the pleasure of staying at Victor's house once and meeting his mother and father. So it was a pleasure just being involved with his family. So, Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So, this is the time where I'm supposed to bring in a closing, sharing. So I'll just say a few things briefly to kind of pull everything together. Because we all know what Viktoras has done for us. I think one thing, though, that wasn't mentioned but could have been was that he wasn't afraid to look like he was a fool. He wasn't afraid of anything, and he shared in ways to make people wake up and think about their life and think about what they're doing. And for us to bring a part of Viktoras into our life is really the best remembrance of him that we could offer. The best way to honor him is in some way make him part of us, to be stronger in sharing good news to people, being stronger to share about a healthy lifestyle for those who are interested, and to keep up our own practices so that when it's our time to go, we can, as he did, rise up, hug our loved ones, lie back down, and close our eyes. Thank you. We will now have, we'll chant what we call the Triambakam mantra, Mahavritanjaya, and it's a chant that is to remind ourselves, that we are immortal beings, and that there's no need to have fear of death, because everyone, no matter who they are, their trajectory is to be one with God. Get there, and can help give us that energy to do what is right, to get there sooner.
Triambakam yajamale sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityurmokshya mamrita om Triambakam yajamale sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityurmokshya mamrita om Triambakam yajamale sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityurmokshya mamrita om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
We
Worship you, all seeing one, fragrance unite plenteously. From the fear of death may you cut us free, to realize immortality. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu.
May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all ignorance.
Victory is our light.
Jai Shri Sakadu Maharaj Ki.
Jai.
Jai Victorious.
Jai.
Jai.
Well, I taught college mathematics for a couple of years, and then I ended up joining Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory for a couple of years. We were working with Baker non-camera stations, mapping out mapping out not only the geography but also the magnetic field of planet Earth. And then I ended up going for more work at University of Connecticut, and then I joined another company called Phi. And that's the one that was on all these different projects. We're the cutting edge in basically in software, and also and basically simulation, language development. So we simulated the flight mission for Apollo. We simulated a lot of kind of the language systems for guiding submarines, war games, all kind of nasty little stuff. And I stayed with them until in my late 20s, at 29, I felt I was not at home anymore. I wanted to be of service. I felt I wanted to be more into humanities, and I didn't know what to do. And I was a sick individual. Many of my colleagues, we were not into any kind of healthy lifestyle. So I saw two of them die from heart attacks on the job. We were 24/7. So I decided to ask from my boss for give me a sabbatical, a time to kind of check out what I want out of life. So I took off for a year, and that's when I discovered Norman Walker. I discovered Dr. Warren Bray. I discovered many of the naturopath doctors who also introduced me to Ann Wigmore. And she had at that time in Boston Globe on the cover magazines of Parade. Twiggy was the number one, you might say, fashion model, skinny bones, but she was world name, and she was at the Hen Week was doing detoxification. So I said, with wheatgrass, I said, oh, I never heard people eating grasses or juicing or whatever. This is for me. So I ended up, eventually visiting Anne, and we hit it off real well, and she offered me a position because I was already. My workaholic behavior kind of enticed her. I mean, and she gave me a position, says there'll be no salary.
you can work all the hours you want, and she offered me a place to stay, a room and board at the farm. So I couldn't ask for anything more. So I ended up being with her for 7 years, developing. I spent over 3,000 hours at basically Harvard Medical, not medical school, but the medical library. You get a better deal. I paid zero for my education, and I got it out of biological abstracts. I went through from 1939 to 1975, and also all the medical books. And that's where I discovered the works of Dr. Edwin Howell. He had his manuscripts were I found it on the shelves there of the library, and it was entitled basically entitled "Food Enzymes in Metabolism and Digestion," and he had over 500 medical journal references, and it was a classic. So I got really that's where I finally connected with enzymes, and then enzymology became my field. I tracked him down. I ended up getting him to allow me to not only to publish this work, so and at the same time he allowed me to do an update. So I added another 40 years to the history of the book in terms of science on the field of enzymology, and wrote that introduction, and then that book was converted to more. It was converted to much more mainstream languages eventually, and enzymology became a buzzword. Then I became Johnny Appleseed of the enzyme industry. So I basically I studied with under Dr. Howell at that time. He was in his early 90s and doing research in the field of microorganisms, soil-based organisms. So, anyways, he taught me a few things. I joined his company and ended up becoming the top sales rep and developer of systems for marketing. So I just kept on going from enzymology to obesity. I worked with another group, Cell Tech, for over 25 years. I traveled, I worked actually with many, many, many different companies and institutions. So Hippocrates was just my start off, but I never left far from Hippocrates. So I always participated. And as Brian and Anna Marie Clemens took over became the CEOs, or you might say the general managers, and took the direction to completely new arenas that Anne never thought about. And they synthesized or organized everything and basically made it very organized. And that was the thing that is the foundation for success. And now I'm at Hippocrates Wellness here in West Palm Beach. Beautiful 60 acres almost of beautiful gardens, all kind of fruit trees, as well as also statues, art, just and housing. And right now, there's still room for new additional guests. People come to study, basically work with our life transformation program, upgrading. And the thing that is very noteworthy about this place over here is that we have more miracles happening here than anywhere else in the world in terms of people who are here from 1 to 3, 6 weeks over there, and you see the radical transformation that is taking place in the individuals. And every Friday we have a kind of a ceremony of sharing the miracles. I happen to participate on this one over here. It gave a, anyways, it's a beautiful place, and I'm so happy to come back twice a year to work with the doctor days, also with our cancer program. We have actually a very special program for cancer twice a year. Excuse me, every month it's initiated, but I participated every 6 months. I come back here, work with the Hippocrates. So this is, and I live in the most paradisical environment. One of my clients, basically, he told me I helped him to overcome fourth stage liver cancer, and he said, "I'll find you the best place to live." So a couple of years later, he takes me off, and I wonder, 50 years ago, no, not 50, about 45 years ago, the place called Costa Rica, the Mosquito Coast, and I just fell in love with it. And now Costa Rica, the place I live, it's noted as a blue zone, noted for longevity, and Costa Rica is also noted to the according to happiness index, basically for 7 years in a row. It's been number one on the happiness factor. In other words, people are much more happier, and that's conducive to health. And just as a last commentary, I know you say, shut up, Victor. As a last commentary, I start my day with happiness. That's something that is so powerful, and everybody should be doing something like this. In the morning before I get out of bed, as I started waking up, the, the first things I say, I am so happy and also so grateful now that I am healthy, happy, holy, abundant, and enjoying the best life ever, expressing my dharma, my passion, why I'm here on planet Earth. And I'll tell you, it really works because I am so happy, I'm so healthy and experiencing abundance, joy, life, friendships. All right.
Our guest is Viktoras Kulvinskas, the author of Survival into the 21st Century, who has his own wellness center in Costa Rica. And Viktoras Kulvinskas is the scientist, the educator, who reintroduced the idea that enzymes were very important for our good health, which is now taken as just mainstream. Everyone talks about it. But really, Kulvinskas, working with the works of Dr. Edward Howell, was really foundational in making that happen. And also Viktoras Kulvinskas, and along with Ann Wigmore, was also equally responsible for the use of fermented foods, which now we all take for granted as why, of course, everyone's known that. But when Victor was studying it and speaking about it, and so was Dr. Ann Wigmore speaking about it and studying it in the 60s, 70s, 80s. People really were unaware of it. Now, Victor, let's go back to Edward Howell for 1 second. So,
sure. Yep.
Would you say that because of your study of his work and updating his work and promoting the work, that digestive enzymes, if I'm categorizing it correctly, became widely used?
They already had a long history, but not very well known in the European and Japanese community. But we basically brought it to the West. The West, the mucozyme, which was developed from basically animal protein, and basically it has a limited scope of value, and whereas it has no dangerous issues associated with fermented sources for enzyme development. So primarily, I was fortunate enough to join a company, Celtec, and basically I took it to the top. It took 5 years to convince them to get involved with enzymes, and the company just took off like crazy in terms of increasing its volume of sales by 10 times in a period of a couple of years. And then other companies in MLM started getting into enzymology, and we ended up doing product development. So within a matter of a couple of years, enzymology just was widespread. Just like right now, we have a situation, at one time, wheatgrass was totally unknown. Right now, you go over on wheatgrass therapy, Ann Wigmore. You go on MedLib over there, Ann Wigmore sprays to the nth degree. I mean, like she's the queen bee, in a sense, in the healing arts. And she's being spoken so highly of the wheatgrass therapy and all the wonderful things she has done. So basically, it took 50 years, more or less, to bring about a radical change, and we see it so accelerated. But right now, the buzzword is sprouts on all the different functional medicine doctors, even Oprah. She's talking about, oh my God, sprouts. Yes, it's one of the wonder foods in the world that just give you so much energy, and it is true. Sprouts and microgreens, which I invented in a sense by discovering seeds that germinate quickly, namely sunflower, buckwheat, pea greens, and a few others. Initially, where you on a small little plot of land, I'm talking about one square foot with half an inch soil, you could grow up to 4 pounds of in a period of 8 days of basically the most fantastic superfoods imaginable, and right in your own apartment, with just the regular little daylight that you get from the window, and this became our indoor gardening concept that was part of the important thing that went along with the Hippocrates program. So yeah, no, this is going like wildfire throughout the whole alternative media, which is becoming the most dominant media in the world. Everybody's talking now about sprouts, microgreens, which is already a multi-billion-dollar industry in terms of sales, retail sales. So we're looking at the shifts that is taking place, and basically, and most people, right now, the new evolution is basically on cultural awareness. So the new buzzword is mindful eating. And if you look up mindful eating, like at least 2 years ago on Harvard.ed, they call mindful eating is basically being very conscious of how it was grown, having appreciation, eating less, blessing, saying a prayer or blessing the food over there, eating, doing intermittent fasting, and chewing a lot from solids to liquids, all these little things. They're part of our culture. It's becoming the word Fletcherize, which is to chew very thoroughly into liquids. Your food is so becoming important. And among other things, they said, lastly, says, and basically emphasizing of basically a plant-based nutrition, not animal-based, but for everywhere you see, we have been an influence, and there's a demographics called cultural creatives. Basically, 1985, they did studies on demographics of what were the behavior patterns of people, and they defined it in three different groups: moderns, traditionalists, and also what they call cultural creatives. These are people that have high values, respect for all life, and basically and respect for Mother Earth and themselves, and into spirituality. And they were a minority. Now they're a majority in our time, and so changes are occurring. And even Trump is talking about it. The President Trump over there, how bad the situation is, and we need solutions. And we got to get away from chemicals. We got to get away from processed foods. Even we got to get away from medication, over medication. And because our culture is collapsing. In 1966, there was only 25% of the children had basically old age degenerative diseases. Right now, it's 54. So we got to start saving our children, because according to demographics, right now the children born today will be outlived by the parents. So you gotta do some radical alterations in upgrading your lifestyle habits. So, and we all can do it with simple little steps. You don't have to do a lot, but get into it. Start off by moving away from processed foods. And I'm talking also to the choir. All these vegetarians and vegans, they're all eating processed foods like crazy. Oh, they're vegan. No, processed food is good for your health, and we see aging is so accelerated and health deteriorates. Oh, I'm still, respectful for animals, but you're not respectful for number one animal, your own body. So it's very important, and then exercise. These are the things that are in my book, Survival in the 21st Century, which is still a very popular seller. You can get it on Amazon. Basically, I emphasize the holistic approach, namely, which was initiated in the 60s, well, in the 70s by Dr. Koff. He ended up being instructed by the late president to find out how come America was the sickest nation in the world. And 10 years later, they come back with the Surgeon General report and stating, as far as wellness and health is concerned, do not expect any help from your medical doctors or from hospitals or any scientific breakthrough. It resides in five basic principles: diet, exercise, your attitude toward life, your stress level, how you manage, are you positive or negative? Are you filled with fear, anxiety? So, and then of course, the rest, recuperation, regeneration. How well do you rest at night? And also, lastly, the environment within which we live. And right now, these are all things challenged. So you got to take a lot of protective action just to stay afloat in a world that is so toxic. The number one cause of death right now is actually airborne diseases, basically, and it's happening worldwide. So you need to sanitize your air. You got to sanitize your water. You got to have sanitize your clothing, everything. You just have to, a lot of protection is requires on your part. But you can do it, just stuff. But the biggest influence is dietary factor, because That's the thing that is the source of your fuel, your energy, that gives you clear mind, ability to function. I mean, I'm 86, and basically by 86, over 50% of Americans are basically suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's disease. And then basically, and why I'm not, or it's having it, because I work my mind, use it or lose it, whether it's your body or your mind. So you study, you exercise, you challenge yourself, you work on yourself, and not only on yourself, but also socially being involved, engaged to make a difference in the world. So I'm still very active on so many different levels, trying to make a difference in the world. So Anne Wigmore started something, like a visionary. She had an idea that came out of her dharma, her passion. She wanted to make a difference in the world based on what she learned from her godmother, which was the power healing of grasses and weeds and stuff like that. She healed herself of gangrene, and then she healed herself of cancer by eating weeds and wild grasses. And then she wanted to take this into the apartment. She developed that beautiful system that just made it possible for everybody to have all the medicine you need in your own home grown. Wheatgrass, indoor greens, sprouts, fermented food. Yeah, seaweed, sea vegetables, Himalayan sea salt, all the things that are required. And you're going to see a radical and different ability to be able to withstand stress and being able to experience enjoying life with your family, with yourself, within your community. And we need to go out and just share the light. In other words, don't be propagating and pushing ideas. Be an example of health, vitality, and service and joy, helping people to upgrade. You don't have to become overnight a vegetarian or a vegan or raw foodist. No, just keep upgrading, keep doing better and better. Get off all your addictions. And I still dealing with my own addiction. It has to do, some of it very subtle, very mental, very emotional. We all have had difficulties in our lives, and mine was some of the more difficult ones. During the last 35 years, I've been the healthiest ever. Whereas during my first 50 years, I was sick, in pain, suffering, but I never gave up. And that's the whole idea. Never give up on yourself. And once you experience something that really works, you'll never forget it. So I could never walk away from my experience with Hippocrates, with Anne Wigmore, with all the other great people that came as part of the Hippocrates wellness people.
Thank you for listening to the show. If you have suggestions for guests or topics you would like to hear, please email me at joshlane.wellness@gmail.com. That's joshlane.wellness@gmail.com. JOSHLANE wellness@gmail.com. On behalf of the cast and crew, I would like to wish you a healthy and safe good evening.